Welcome to the State of Happiness. I'm your host, Leslie Juvin-Acker, Chief Happiness Officer at Leslie Inc., where we provide solutions for finding happiness for stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed senior-level managers, executives, and entrepreneurs. The State of Happiness podcast offers you conversation, inspiration, and ideas for helping you increase your happiness in the areas of your personal relationships, your career, your abundance, and your emotional well-being. So come along with us on this episode, and we'll help you get the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to help you find your own state of happiness. Are you curious about how Leslie Inc. can help you find more happiness in your life? Whether you need more happiness in your career, your abundance, your relationships, or just your emotional well-being, we've got a solution that'll help you figure out where to start. Go to our website at leslieinc.org and take our happiness assessment. In less than 2 minutes, with 10 questions, you'll find out which area of your life could use more happiness and which guide pack we can use to help get you back to your state of happiness. Welcome, happy campers. On this episode of The State of Happiness, we have my husband, Frank Juvin-Acker, and he's going to be with us, and we're both going to be talking about thoughts. How to stop being a slave to your thoughts and to become an original thinker. And why is that so important for living a happy, healthy life? Thanks for joining us today on this episode of The State of Happiness, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Glad to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about automatic thoughts, how to stop being a slave to your thoughts and to recognize an original thought. Did you know, Frank, that most of the thoughts we think are automatic, pre-programmed thoughts that we've gotten from our parents and other influential life figures growing up?
To be honest, I didn't really realize, until we talked about it, a couple of days ago. And it was just striking. I was like, oh my gosh, all of these thoughts are pre-programmed.
Well, so guys, the conversation happened like this. Most nights I'll finally, after a long day from being up from either 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I finally find myself into bed about 9 o'clock, and then I begin to relax. And when everything gets quiet, and my mind is quiet, then I begin to receive information. I call these downloads. And these downloads, whenever you're calm and quiet, suddenly come into your mind. And they're like realizations. They're like truths. And for me, I realized in that quiet moment that most of the thoughts we think are automatic. And they're not even original thoughts. And you can say that in these moments, I receive original thoughts where the whole day, even I get caught in the thoughts that I've either been pre-programmed with or have thought before, and they're not really original. And so I get caught in the daily habits, just like everybody else. So when I thought about that, I had to share with Frank, and I asked him, did you know that most of the thoughts that you think are not even original? What was that like for you, Frank?
When I think about myself and my thoughts, I like to think it's original, but then when you really look at it, it's pretty repetitive, or there is some just patterns that are, kind of the struggle I go through, and then I just realize it's kind of what I learned from my mom, for instance.
So what kind of thoughts do you think from your mom that you now realize are automatic?
Just kind of this obsessive thought that don't really help solve a solution. It's like right now she's going through that apartment house thing, and she just.
So your mom's building an apartment.
Yeah.
Right.
and there are some delays, but there is nothing she can do about it. But she's still going to think about it 20 hours a day, every day.
So she's gonna worry.
Yeah, but she fully knows there is no solution, or at least, yeah, no solution to that, and definitely no solution by worrying 24 hours a day. So
Right.
sometimes I feel when I do my best to not repeat that kind of pattern. I mean, I grew up with, seeing her like that every day, so it kind of, it's kind of like a default pattern for me
Right.
if I
Well,
don't pay
I
attention.
remember there was one time I was looking at you and spirit came through and I said, you know, and a lot of people do this, is do you realize, Frank, that when you don't know what to do, you default to worrying and you assume that worrying is doing something when in fact it's not? And when I said that to you, you just had this blank stare on your face and you registered what that realization was for you and you were like, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally. Yeah.
at that point, you realized how useless worrying was.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not helpful.
So there are different kinds of thoughts, and we look at pre-programmed automatic thoughts. It's kind of like watching a DVR that your parents programmed for you. So you go home, you sit down, and you turn on your TV, and you put your remote onto the main menu, and you look at the menu of programming, and everything that is on there are things that your parents watched. And so you only watch those recordings on the DVR. You have no idea that you can actually change the channel. You can change the information stream. You can change the theme of whatever you're watching. But a lot of times people just watch the old programming. And in fact, we get a lot from our family and our inspirational figures growing up. It could be a grandparent, it could be cousins, it could be a teacher, it could be our parents, it could be our siblings. And we pick up a lot of these patterns. And we don't realize what these automatic thoughts are.
So what are those?
So, some of the most common thoughts of programming are one, judgmental thoughts. We automatically default to judgmental thinking. We judge other people as good or bad or as pitiful or as wonderful or beautiful without even thinking. We instantly say that's ugly, that's bad. And the second type of automatic thought is critical thoughts, criticizing something, looking for ways to tear it down, picking it apart, deciding that something is not good, and finding all the reasons why it's not good at all. We do this with people, we do this with things, we even do it with situations, and most importantly, we do it with ourselves.
Yeah, that's pretty typical, those two.
So, another way of looking at our thoughts is cruel thoughts. And I think that cruelty and looking at somebody in a cruel way or being cruel to yourself and saying you're not worthy, you're not good enough, this is not going to work out, is a painful way of looking at a situation because we don't realize how cruel we actually are. And a lot of clients who come into my office talk a lot about their parents and they say, my parents were so cruel and it made me feel so bad and ashamed of myself. So cruelty lives in that realm of shame. The next thought, this is number 4, is unkind thoughts. And it's a little bit of a diversion from cruelty where unkind thoughts are just simply not even bothering to look for the good. It's really just consistently being unkind and uncompassionate and unforgiving of people. And this is where opportunity comes in by being kind, because in kindness we look for opportunities. The number 5 automatic thought is limiting thoughts. Limiting thoughts say, no, I can't do that. We've never done that way before. This way is the only way. or I can never like make more money, or no one would see me in a leadership position. You're literally disqualifying yourself. And people don't realize that all of these voices come from a disqualifying voice that pull you out of the game
Mm.
and say that you don't have what it takes to go an extra mile. The next thought, Frank, is number 6, and that one is unoriginal. Unoriginal thoughts are just things that you repeat because you read them somewhere or heard them from somebody. A lot of people post things on Facebook, right?
Yeah,
Right?
cannot do that.
And they pass them off as their own thinking. And in fact, a lot of the things that we repeat and say to other people are not even original thoughts. We just read it somewhere in a book, good or bad, and we repeat them to somebody else. But they have no insight, no knowledge, no practical value whatsoever. They're just repeated from some other source.
Yeah, I do this one once in a while.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When's the last time you did that?
I kind of today I try to repeat what you say, but it's just not as good.
You repeated what I said? Who did you repeat what I said to?
No, I forgot in general. Like I have a coworker, and I told him about different industries, and then I'm like, oh yeah, Leslie, she says that kind of stuff, and but at least I quote you. I'm not trying to plagiarize you.
Right. Well, a lot of people actually plagiarize their thoughts. They don't name the source and they just read it from somewhere. And honestly, it even goes with seeing, inspirational thoughts or positive affirmations. You read them, but you don't actually have any
Mm.
practical experience from them. And remember, even the Bible says thoughts and words without actions are dead. So you can have a thought like, be kind, and you don't actually be kind to other people. That's an unoriginal thought and
Yeah.
it actually has no value whatsoever. And the last one in this group of automatic thoughts is dishonesty. And this is just simply saying no to the truth. If you like something and you love it, say it. If you notice something's not going right, then acknowledge it. If you notice somebody's being cruel and you don't agree with it, call them out for it. Like, be an honest person. And so many people withhold their truth. And in that process, they begin to forget more and more who they are. And that's why it's so important all the time to be an honest person and speak from a place of truth.
So when I look at like this 7 kind of program thought, like I mean, they definitely have some kind of negative aspects. So what's the impact on, I guess, your body, or like what kind of pain they can cause to
Right.
yourself?
So when we look at unkind thoughts, remember they don't exist in a vacuum. Thoughts are actually things. And thoughts negatively held, especially for a consistent period with habitual thinking, creates pain, because pain is simply a persistently negative and uncontrolled thought process that's stored in our body. And it's so important to recognize that when we feel aches and pains, whether it's in our back or our neck or our legs or our feet, that there's some kind of judgmental, negative, doubtful, critical thought that we're withholding in our body. And many people don't even realize that. When the body thinks negative thoughts, it creates stress hormones. And these negative thoughts usually become from a place of not feeling safe. And when you feel that you're being labeled or criticized, judged, or blamed, you don't realize that you're actually creating that hormone within yourself, and it produces stress hormone. And what the stress hormone does on the short term helps you to protect yourself, to create short term solutions in the fight or flight phase. But when a negative hormone, which is stress induced through paranoid, critical, judgmental thoughts, it actually creates a stress state. And the body can only exist in 2 states. Either you're growing or you're dying. And if you're protecting yourself, after a certain period of time, you're no longer growing. So you are, in fact, self-destructing. And people don't realize that you are biologically creating self-destruction through negative, persistent thoughts. And when I have clients who come in and I see their energetic auras, I see the energy around them, I can tell which part of their body is off balance, if their light around them is weak on the right side, there's something going on. I can see if there's some kind of pain that's going on in their stomach area. And your energy, just by your thoughts alone, affects your health. And negative thoughts, stress, anxious thoughts actually vibrate faster. And sad thoughts, self-judgmental thoughts, they actually vibrate slower. So people in distressed, depressed states are actually vibrating in a slower rate, while people who are anxious or angry are literally exploding. So that metaphor for exploding or blowing up is very accurate when it comes to the feeling and the vibration of energy.
That's pretty cool. So talking about pain and that suffering, how do you relieve that?
So there are many different ways that you can actually relieve pain and suffering. But the first place to start is to become aware of the patterns that you're actually thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize what those patterns are. They are just slave to their thoughts. So the first reason that people come to see me is because they want intuitive guidance. They want to know, what is their energy saying? What are their spirit guides, their loved ones who've crossed over? What are their potentials that they're creating? So they want to get this awareness and they want something unbiased. They want to get a different perspective. And that's the first place that they come. So they sit down with me and I begin to look at them as they are in a state of love. Because if you look at somebody in a state of love, you can just see them for who they are and what's happening, and you're not actually judging them. So that's the number one place to be, is to step into a place of love with yourself and to begin to acknowledge, wow, I'm actually living some patterns.
Cool. So pretty much step one is to be aware, and step two is to acknowledge it.
Right. So the second part, once you become aware of something, you can't deny it anymore. You have to acknowledge it and you have to stop living in that state of denial and perpetuating the negativity that you've dwelled in for so long. And denial is not a place in Egypt. It's actually a state of mind. And if you live in denial and you don't want to acknowledge that, hey, I'm a consistently negative person and I'm judgmental and I am bitter and resentful towards other people for the way that my life is, you're going to continue to blame other people and you're not going to take responsibility for changing your life. I've seen a lot of clients like this who have dwelled in a state of blame and denial for a very long time. And it's tough for them to want to snap out of it, because then that means they'll have to acknowledge that, oh crap, I've been creating this situation and not one other person except me. So
Yeah,
definitely acknowledge.
and I'm sure it's not that easy. Like to have you must be kind of great for like guidance, but if you like think that way for many years, which I have some thoughts that have been going on for a couple of years. So to to acknowledge must be a great step to the right direction already.
Right. Well, acknowledge comes with acceptance. And it's saying, like, wow, for a long time I've thought those thoughts, but now I'm ready to make a new choice. And that leads us to step 3, making an active choice to think differently and to accept people, situations, and things as they are. And that means being conscious of not labeling, criticizing, judging, and blaming other people for the way that things are. And that's a very powerful step to take, is to choose to be kind and compassionate and, loving. And so many of us instantly revert to labeling and criticizing, judging, and blaming other people.
That should be a tagline for a company.
Right?
Every company employee every morning. No labeling, no criticizing.
All of these thoughts I actually have in a free report, and it's going to be available very soon. And you can sign up for it and get this free report of the different ways that you actually think yourself into anxiety. And I'm going to post that on the blog very soon. And you can get that in the show notes. And the next part, after recognizing that you have an active choice to think differently, is to train your body to relax. Biology follows a prime directive. So, whatever you tell your body to do, it will do. If you tell your body to relax, it will relax. But a lot of people believe falsely that their bodies are something they can't control. Yes, there are parts that you cannot turn off, like your autonomic nervous system, like your heart and your lungs and all this. But give it some time and focus on it, you can learn to stop your heart, right? But we have to look at this as training your body to relax. It's like yoga, right? You're literally going through yoga to control your breath, to control your body. And a lot of people don't realize, Frank, and this was something you used to be big into 10 years ago. You're a huge yoga guy.
Yeah, it was like, but not in the right mindset. For me, it was a competition.
Well, you were very athletic and you were all about competing against yourself. And you realize, and we all realize once you do yoga enough, that yoga is a way, and a lot of people feel it this way after doing yoga, that when you're doing the yoga practice, you're actually learning to focus on your body, become mindful of your body, and to move it and begin to take control of it. And in that process of controlling your biology, you don't realize that you're actually controlling your mind, keeping it from thinking negative, judgmental, critical thoughts. And a lot of people realize after yoga, they say, oh, I feel so like high on life. I feel so clear. I feel so good. I don't have any pain. I feel so flexible. And it's not because you're doing this physical activity. It's because you're literally exercising your mind to stop being critical and to start being mindful.
That's a great insight. Yeah.
Frank is hearing all of this for the first time, folks. So you're hearing it just as he is. So when we look at all of this, training your body to relax is just as important as training your mind to relax, and meditation is yoga for the mind. The better you become at meditating, the better you become at relaxing your mind.
So that was this fourth step. So, what's the fifth step?
So, the fifth step to creating original thought and to stop being a slave to your mind is acting consistently on loving affirmations, taking big action on loving thoughts. It's one thing to think a loving thought like, wow, we're all going to get along today. It's actually to apply that getting along, telling yourself of your choices and reminding yourself that you do have a choice. So if you're in a situation and you feel very stressed, for example, you're in the grocery line, you've got 5 minutes to go, you got to get on the road before traffic hits so you can pick up your kids, you're feeling stressed. You have to ask yourself, is worrying and stressing going to help me, or is visualizing this line going faster and me meeting my kids by the time that the school closed and getting through traffic more helpful? And people don't realize that the power of visualization and focusing your mental efforts to create an outcome is the fastest way to experience that. But many people are so undisciplined in their thinking that they let their minds wander, and it's no wonder that they're constantly surprised unpositively by life because they're not concentrating their mental efforts. So if you're in the grocery line and you're feeling stressed and you've got this stuff going on, remember to say, I'm in choice of my attitude right now. I can focus instead on me getting through this line, getting to my car smoothly, and getting through traffic and meeting my kids before the time is out, and focusing your mind on that. And remember, you can say to yourself, I choose to be calm right now. I choose to look at the positive. If you feel out of control in your life and in your mind, just constantly say, with every choice, I choose this.
Sure. So that's awesome. I need to do that more often. But so let's say when someone tells you something negative, like what do you do?
Well, there's a few things that you can do, and these are things that I teach our kids to say, is that if somebody tells you something negative, or if you hear something negative, like, I don't know, you're not a good person, you're a bad person, you can say a few things to the person, and you can even say it to yourself. You can say, I don't believe that. That's the number one thing that you can say to something that you know is just somebody spewing a negative automatic thought towards you. And a lot of times people proliferate negative thinking because they want other people to feel bad too. Misery loves company. So if you say to somebody who says, oh, you're going to do this, or this is going to happen to you, or whatever, you say, no, I don't believe that. And that was something I used to say a lot growing up when people, especially in my own family, would say, oh, you're going to experience this bad thing, or you're not good enough for this, or you think you're this. And I would go, no, I don't believe that.
That's awesome.
And that's the fastest way to take power away from somebody, is to say, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And the other things that you can say is, and again, you can also say this to yourself, is I have other choices. I choose differently. That's your story. And no thanks. And this is one that we teach our daughter, Harper.
And me.
if somebody says something mean or does something she doesn't like, or something that's mean to her, I just say, tell them no thanks. Like, just say no thanks. And these phrases are really affirmations of your own truth and of the truth, that you do have the choice to choose differently. You can choose a different outcome and a different experience. And most of the time when people tell you something, oh, like the economy is so bad and I'll never find a job, and the economy is bad and you'll never get a job, you say, that's your story. It doesn't have to be my story. And remember, a lot of success stories happens during times of difficulty, economic crises, when people are not looking at the negative, but they're looking for the opportunity. And only original thinkers are looking for opportunity, and they're not looking for the problem, because the problem is already there.
That's so cool. So, okay, so now we saw like 6 steps, and from when you talked last night, there was one last step.
So
to have more like original thoughts.
Definitely. So to no longer be a slave to your thoughts, and to create and be an originator of an original thought, is to be an active original thinker. Choose loving, life-affirming thoughts. Celebrate yourself and your life, and always look for the positive. Look for the good, because in the good there are opportunities. And sure, we want to acknowledge that sometimes we do feel negative, we feel sad, and something you can say is, even though I feel anxious or overwhelmed or worried or burdened, I choose to do this. I choose to feel this way. And that's a powerful negator of that negative vibration, the negative emotional component that we carry in ourselves, that we can remind ourselves that even though I feel in a negative state or concern, I do have a choice. And the best way, of course, is to always relax into the moment and not to try to judge any of it. And when you judge, you're closing your mind off. But when you just begin to observe, using, in a way, the scientific method and testing it with experience and experiment, you can actually guide yourself into new original situations and to create an original life, because you were born an original and there is no one else like you. So it's so important that you believe in yourself and not everything you think.
Wow, that's amazing. That's going to be really useful for me and for all your podcast listener.
Totally. Well, Frank, thanks for joining me today. I really enjoyed sharing with you, and I know that since we've been married for almost 10 years now, this is not a new subject for us, because it's so important as married couples to think creatively together. So that's a final tip as well, that if you want to create a beautiful life with your friends, with your family, or with your spouse, always remember to co-create and think new original thoughts together instead of repeating the old negative patterns. All right, folks, that's our show for today. And this is going to be our last show before the Thanksgiving holiday. So we want to say, from our family to yours, Happy Thanksgiving. So thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, a smile goes a long way. If you are ready to find your state of happiness, then a State of Happiness Guide Pack will get you there. 1 state, 4 destinations. These unique one-on-one coaching packages with me, Leslie Juvin-Acker, can help you reach your goals, dramatically improve your self-confidence, and create the life and career you want. Learn more about Leslie Inc. guide packs at leslieinc.org/get happy. Watch the informational video, select a guide pack, and change your life in as little as one day. It's that easy. Leave the rest to me because I'm your guide in the state of happiness. A many thanks to you, happy campers, for joining us today on this episode of The State of Happiness. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join me at Twitter at Leslie Juvin, as well as follow at Leslie Inc. on Instagram, and talk with us at Facebook at Official Leslie Inc. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to leave us a rating and subscribe and share with a friend. As always, thanks for joining us, and remember, a smile goes a long way.